Back in September of 2012, a pro-Israel lobbyist, I mean, he's part of this think tank that tends to push narratives that are favorable to Israel and Israel's foreign policy. His name's Patrick Clawson. Was speaking at an event. It was the Policy Forum in Washington, D.C., and he was talking about what could be done to go to war with Iran. I'm not even kidding. So this is 2012 under Obama. Remember, 3 years later in 2015, Obama did one of the best things in his presidency, which was get Iran to sign a nuclear deal. They stopped enriching their uranium. Unfortunately, Trump ripped up that deal in 2018, which led to Iran enriching uranium. But nonetheless, 3 years prior to the Iran nuclear deal, here's what Patrick Clawson had to say. Take a look.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for US interests. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall we had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. So if in fact the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war.
What did he mean by that? If somebody else started the war?
So I assume that he means because we know that there's no justification for this war, we need Israel will attack Iran, start the war, and then drag America into it.
Or something needs to happen, some sort of event, some sort of terrible thing needs to happen that impacts Americans.
Yeah.
That would drum up support to go to war with Iran.
Well, okay, that's what's happening today. That was in 2012. It's interestingly right between now and September 11th. And September 11th obviously was a cataclysmic event here in America. And we did go to war with Iraq afterwards, and Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. But to be fair, they had weapons oh no, they also had no weapons of mass destruction. And do you want to know where we got the fake intelligence on the weapons of mass destruction? Our beloved ally Israel gave us that fake intelligence. So, and remember, whenever Ted Cruz or anybody else is asked about it, what does Israel do for us? They give us intelligence, fake intelligence to drive us into war after war after war. And at the time, Israeli leaders said Iraq is our #1 enemy, Israel's #1 enemy. And right now, before this war began, they said Iran is their #1 enemy. And look at that, we're in a war with both of them. And interestingly enough, Israel started one here, the one you guys just saw with your own eyes. And the other one was after a cataclysmic event here in America.
Yeah, it's just, I thought the whole framing of what he was saying there was a little sick, right? Because it's like, oh man, we really want to go to war with Iran. But historically speaking, when the US finally did decide to go to war, in other contexts obviously, they had to wait for something devastating to happen to Americans or to our soldiers, in the case of Pearl Harbor, for instance. I mean, luckily, you had a president at the time, Obama, who was legitimately pursuing diplomacy to get a nuclear deal signed with Iran.
Yeah, one more thing about that. Look, so right now, I don't know that they've even gotten enough support for us to do regime change. That's maybe why Trump announced the so-called ceasefire today. And there's been pushback from some portions of his base and his voters, etc. But if they were able to get Iran to counterattack and hit US troops, boom, you'd have all you would need for regime change. So start the war, agitate, drag America into it, wait for Americans to get killed, and then step aside as America fights your war for you. But I'm sorry, we can't say these things that are super obvious that we're all seeing with our own eyes as it happens right now. And by the way, fun little fact, people like Bill Kristol, who were part of the neocons, who were ready to start this war if Kamala Harris had won, are now beginning to go, oh, Trump not so bad.
100%. I mean, Bill Kristol has always been a snake. And for all the Democrats who were fooled by him and all of the other Bush administration neocons who were like, MSNBC was littered with them and continues to be littered with them. Just dig a little bit deeper, please. Just because you share an enemy, Donald Trump, doesn't mean that these are good people. These are people who dragged us into the forever wars, drained this country of its resources, just complete and utter disastrous people.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.